Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Johnny Mac, you never give any attention to Roy Wood Jr.'s new show, Have I Got News for You on CNN. I know, and the CNN publicist put out so many articles about it, and I've barely talked about it. The LA Times spoke to Roy Wood Jr. They talked about his time playing sports in high school. He warmed the bench, Roy said. Your job as a bench warmer is to come up with the heckles against the other team. I took pride in writing insults to hurl at other 15-year-olds. If I could get the umpire to laugh, that was like an applause break. If I got the parents to laugh, that was the standing O. Roy says, we're a very interesting piece of real estate with this new show. In between, say, a Jimmy Fallon and a Daily Show, it's an opportunity to talk about the news, but we get to season it for taste in terms of the depth in which we want to go on a particular topic. Sidebar here, the LA Times writes, as Roy Wood said that sentence, he was alternating sips of two smoothies, one a fruity pink, the other a healthy green. Fascinating. I might head over to the smoothie place after I record this. They have this new cinnamon smoothie that's so good, I might have to go get one. Roy says, the burden of making the argument every single time is not on my shoulders anymore. It's a chance to live within the jokes first, the opinions second. The conversation turned to his time at The Daily Show, and he said, the biggest thing I learned from watching Trevor Noah is not to let anger pollute your sense of humor. It's infuriating what's happening in America, but the moment you allow yourself to be consumed by the anger, you lose your ability to make fun of everything. I remember Trevor allowing not anger but compassion to drive his segment about a police shooting. As I recall, there wasn't a single joke in the first act. He just spoke sincerely to the camera about where we are as a country. There were so many moments where Trevor could have used the pulpit to cuss America out, and he never did it, but instead he used calmness as a more precise scalpel. Interesting. I'm going to use the word spin here. This isn't the way I remember it, but the LA Times writes, when it became clear that one-time frontrunner Hassan Minhaj wasn't going to get the Daily Show job, Wood started to worry that there was no plan for the Daily Show as it headed into an election year. Roy says, at that point, Jon Stewart coming back was not in the conversation. For me, it felt like, well, what is life going to be for me after the Daily Show? If they pick somebody that doesn't want me as a correspondent, then what am I going to do next year? If I'm going to have to eventually find a place to land, I should just start that process now. All right, that is fair. I think what my point is that the LA Times left out the part where they weren't obviously not considering Roy for the desk either. Amber Ruffin said, Roy knows every current news story, but also the history of them, which is amazing to me. Even when you think, oh, he's not going to have the backstory on this, he does. Roy has a kind of gravitas. He feels like he belongs in the chair. He just feels like a dude you might be hanging out with around the grill at a barbecue. Whereas I'm the jerkface who's going to be like, do you have Impossible Burgers? Roy Wood has been preparing for the show by watching Steve Harvey host Family Feud. Why? Because he's the king of hearing something ridiculous, pausing and reacting to it, and then getting the game back on track. He's keeping an open mind about the future and said, if the Daily Show called, I'm not going to send them a voicemail, but I am dating someone. The CNN press team got Vulture to write about the show. Hey, Amber Ruffin, how did you wind up getting hired as one of the team captains? Amber said they had a bunch of us test for it, and it was just the most fun little reunion. It was everybody who's kind of in this space. It was all the late night people, the funny news podcasters, the people who had late night shows. Will she be asking her pals to be on her team? No one's asking me who should be on the show. I don't have any control of who's on the show or not, or else it'd be all my friends, which I guess would be fine. I don't even know who's going to be on this Friday. They tape Friday and it airs Saturday. How's the show different than the UK version? It's a little more game show-esque. It's overflowing with punchlines. The goal is to give your fastest answer, and many times that's wrong or silly, and because we're all comedians, it's very much like an improvised late-night show. That's how it behaves. We're spitting out punchlines that a team hasn't sat down and thought through, which makes it more fun and truer than your regular show. It'll be different in that the segments are way tighter than your run-of-the-mill British panel show. I think it's very segment-heavy and bit-heavy, whereas the other panel shows can get to yapping. How do you decide who wins? Roy is deciding who gets points, and he can be bought before every show. It's on the whims of Roy. It's how he's feeling, so yeah, I'm going to bring him presents. I want to win. Let's stay political for a second. The Daily Beast spoke to Samuel Wiles. He does stand-up comedy in L.A. and resembles JD Vance, and he has started doing a JD Vance impression. Wiles said, I'm always kind of clocking guys with big round heads and beards in media. The fact that we both have light eyes and kind of high school teacher speaking voices with a bonus coincidence. He started doing his Vance impression on TikTok on August 7th. While channeling J.D. Vance in a recent video, he had Vance reading letters from constituents and said, Dear future VP Vance, a Haitian illegal broke into my house and ate my dog between 2 slices of Wonder Bread. He was wearing nothing but a cape and a sinister top hat. He escaped on a skateboard powered by dark magic. How does he come up with ideas? He thought about how much I don't like J.D. Vance, but also how awful it would be to be him. I started writing down stuff I thought he would say because I thought I could talk about it as stand-up, but then I wrote for like 90 minutes straight. It was so easy. I read Hillbilly Elegy when it came out. I remember liking it while I was reading it, then putting it down and going, oh wait, what an a-hole. Then when he became an outright conservative media figure, that it seemed really logical. It'll never not be funny to me that he's a huge fraud and no one likes him. He doesn't even get the benefit of this weird lying. His life would be so much easier if he could be honest, but there's so many layers that he can't have an honest moment now. Part of what makes a good Vance impression? Mascara. He says, my fiance works in beauty and did my eyeliner for the first round of videos, and we both kind of realized it needed to look worse. So now I just get the $3 Wet n Wild from Walgreens and mash it into my eyes on my own. Shout out to Walgreens. Nick Swardson spoke to the 800-pound gorilla, and he said, one of my favorite stories is I did a performance arts center, and I show up backstage. It's about 2,000 seats. I look up at the wall. It's a big mural of the Lion King and Phantom and Wicked. And I go to the manager, and I go, do you guys have comedy here? And he goes, oh, yeah, we have comedy sometimes. We had Louis Black. And I go, oh, no. Do you have security here? And he goes, no, but we have ushers. And I'm like, you don't understand. There's going to be a crap storm coming in here. My fans are going to be rowdy. And he's like, we'll be fine. And it's like, no, you don't understand what I'm saying to you. The Nick Swardson crowd's going to come in hot. And he's like, I'm not worried about it. Okay, whatever. We go. I do my show. It's chaos. Girls got in a fight in a balcony. There's a brawl. People are being insane. It's super fun. I had a blast. And after the show, I go back to my green room and the manager goes, what the F? And I'm like, yeah, I told you. People are doing cocaine in the crowd. There's vomit everywhere. Our ushers didn't know what to do. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I told you. Literally said that. I called my agent and I was like, maybe let's take a break from the Performing Arts Center. Like, what am I going to do after the ballet? Slate has a big article on the art of clowning. Little too deep for me to cover on this podcast, but a good read on Slate. The part I'll highlight here is they spoke to Natalie Palamides, who I think is fantastic. And the setup here was about how clown performers dress. And they said, Natalie, by contrast, often isn't dressed in anything. In one of her more shocking bits, Palamides takes the stage dressed like the Little Mermaid looking for her true love. An audience member volunteers to fill that role. Natalie locks them in an aggressive tongue and make-out, pulling their shirt over their head. With passionate postnuptial gusto, writes Slate. Later, Palamides strips down completely and discovers that, with the wonders of enjoying herself, maybe she doesn't need true love after all. She says, so much of the clowning in the modern scene is naked and horny, and that's not part of being a clown. Traditional clowning is supposed to be innocent, childlike, and playful, and I'm frustrated that I've become an example of this. It's become a crutch for people. If you're going to do nudity, you have to earn it. She's anxious that she might be bastardizing the form. She would rather say that I was a physical character comedian. I think more people on the outside started to refer to me as a clown before I called myself one. One of her friends made the case that clowning, just like any form of art, is subject to reinvention and deconstruction. Dylan went electric. Natalie might ditch her clothes in the middle of a show. Leslie Lau is one of Vulture's comedians you should know and will know. And they asked her, if she were immortalized as a cartoon character, what would her outfit be? Interesting question. Stylish athleisure, high-waisted sweatpants, sports bra, and a cool, baggy vintage jacket, sexy, clean sneakers. Sounds like Poochie from The Simpsons. Didn't Poochie dress like that? What comedian's career trajectory would you like to follow? Bill Burr. I want to do stand-up forever, be known for that first, and be competitive with myself and see if I can be better than I was the year before. I want everything I do outside of stand-up, writing, acting, podcasting, directing, voiceover, etc., to align with my voice and comedic style. Worst show ever? I recently did a show at a college, so beforehand I assumed it was for college students. That is a good assumption. When I arrived, it was for a summer camp of high school students touring the college to decide whether or not they wanted to apply. The average age had to be 16. They spent the entire day doing activities and were restless. All of them were on their phones and either talking to each other, shouting at questions at the comics, or trying to make each other laugh. The sound was awful. They were too young to grasp the concepts of my jokes, loneliness, isolation, agonizing over whether or not to have children, etc. They were not listening or laughing at anything I said, so I started doing Q&A. Questions range from, what's your favorite movie, to, does life get worse, to, what's your Snapchat? The lineup was stacked with amazing and talented comics, and one by one, we were demolished emotionally by these children. I hated it, and it was amazing. All right, what's your joke writing process? She says, trying to be funny can backfire on me. When I first started, I naturally thought of what would make an audience laugh and work backwards in tailoring the premise to it. Now I realize if I try to be funny first, my truth will get lost. If I start with the truth first and rant about my honest feelings and experience, often the humor will materialize on its own organically. All right, comedy opinion hill that you'll die on. Leslie says, let's experiment with earlier showtimes. Shows that start past 9 p.m. are a challenge to us all. Everyone's pushing their limits to be awake and full of energy, when in reality, we're all fighting there to doze off. Amen. Preach. Johnny Mac goes to bed at 9:30 half the time. Let me take a crack at a 4 p.m. show. We can all have a laugh, get dinner at a reasonable hour, and tuck ourselves in by 9 p.m. Oh, I think that's awesome. She says, I also love the no phones at shows policy. A stand-up show is not a concert. It's a time to listen and laugh. When you're holding up your phone in front of your face and blocking other people's view and filming our sets, you're neither listening or laughing. Best comedy advice, worst comedy advice, best. Don't try to lead with being relatable. Just focus on what's true for yourself and hope it connects with people. Worst. When I had my day job at Netflix, a few comics would find out and tell me that I was already in. All I had to do was get acquainted with someone on the stand-up team and pitch myself and get a special that way. I'm well aware that's a backward, awkward, and unprofessional strategy. These industry people have to come to you. If the comics approach them, there'd be a line of comics in the Netflix lobby waiting to pitch themselves to creative executives every day. Just be so good, funny, professional, and special that someone who can change your life will notice you and come to you. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. You can share it on social media. You can follow me on social media. Twitter is at DCNPod. Threads seems to get a little more traction with the comedy community. On Threads, I have the proper at Daily Comedy News if you want to be my friend over there. If you would like the program without commercial interruption, there's a link in the show notes that'll tell you how that works. You have an awesome day, and I'll see you tomorrow.